Am I the antagonist for calling my brother an ungrateful POS? Okay, I will try to make this story shorter and clearer. I am a 34-year-old woman, and I have a 39-year-old brother named Mike. Our mother has always spoiled and favored him, even though we are the youngest of 6 siblings. Being the youngest, I never had any memories of being spoiled by our parents. I worked hard in school and received small rewards for good grades, as well as gifts on Christmas and my birthday. Eventually, I became a software engineer and was able to buy my first home and a nice car on my own. In contrast, my brother is not very smart, and I say this objectively. I used to tutor him when he struggled in school. He served in the military for a few years and has been working in construction for the past 16 years. Our mother has continuously spoiled and rewarded him throughout his life, regardless of any special occasions or his academic achievements. He always got the best shoes, game consoles, clothes, and trips. Basically anything he wanted. A few years ago, he divorced his wife, who was also a doctor, and spoiled him. Now he lives with one of my other brothers and my dad. I assumed that as 3 grown adult men living together, they would share the expenses. However, when I lived with my brother 6 years ago, I paid him $700 in rent for a room because I understood that as an adult with a job, it was expected of me. Moving forward to this year, I was on the phone with my mother 2 days ago when she casually mentioned that my brother Mike got fired from his construction job last week. I expressed concern about how he would be able to pay for rent, his car, his Harley, and all his other expenses in the current economy. Surprisingly, my mother burst out laughing and said, "Oh, honey, your brother hasn't paid rent to your other brother for almost 5 years, and I make his car payments for him. He even drives a Mercedes." I was shocked and couldn't believe this had been happening without anyone helping me when I was in need. I tried to keep my composure and asked my mother how this was possible. However, I was deeply hurt, especially considering our already strained relationship. I eventually told her that I didn't think we should continue the conversation and hung up on her. Today is my dad's birthday, so I called my brother Mike and asked him if he got our dad a birthday present. He replied, "No way, Dad has never been nice to me and I got fired last week." In anger, I called him an ungrateful piece of shit, reminding him how lucky he had been his whole life and how he never had to work for anything. I also mentioned that he didn't even have to worry about paying rent or car payments. Then I hung up on him. Afterwards, Mike called our mother to report what I had said. Now she's calling me a jealous asshole. So am I the asshole? Am I the antagonist? Based on the information provided, it seems like you may not be the asshole, not the antagonist in this situation. It appears that your brother has been consistently spoiled and financially supported by your mother, while you have had to work hard to achieve your accomplishments. It is understandable that this would be frustrating and hurtful for you. However, calling your brother names and hanging up on him may not have been the most constructive way to express your feelings. It might be worth having a calm conversation with your family members to address the situation and discuss your concerns. Am I the antagonist for forbidding my boyfriend from eating in my car during a road trip? I, female 21, and my boyfriend, male 22, are leaving for a vacation in 12 hours. It's a 6-hour drive. My boyfriend's dad paid for our hotel but asked us to use my car. I have a personal rule of no open food or drinks in my car. My previous car was completely wrecked a few months ago, and I recently got a new 2024 car. From the start, I made it clear that no open food or drinks would be allowed in my car, and both my family and my boyfriend agreed that this was reasonable. Since I didn't take good care of my last car, I want to ensure that I do better this time. Some background about me: I have always been a very messy and disorganized person. I'm now trying to be more careful with my environment and belongings. Additionally, I have ADHD, which is not an excuse but can affect my organization. My previous car was always a mess, and it was embarrassing and demoralizing whenever I had to give others rides. I acknowledge that it was entirely my fault. I had a bad habit of leaving trash, clothes, and spilling food and drinks in my car, then neglecting to clean it for months. It looked like I lived out of it due to the numerous cups, clothing, stains, etc. When I received my new car, courtesy of my parents, a few weeks ago, I made a firm commitment to leave absolutely nothing in the car when exiting and prohibiting any open snacks or drinks inside. Since then, the car has remained spotless. Before we went to the store to grab some last-minute road trip supplies, I informed my boyfriend that I wouldn't allow open bags of snacks like popcorn, chips, pretzels, etc. In my car, I stated that any snacks he bought would have to be consumed outside of the car. He agreed that this was reasonable, and his father, who was nearby and heard the conversation, also agreed. I reminded my boyfriend twice while we were in the store. However, he suddenly became upset, called me boring, no fun, and irrational. My boyfriend is quite stubborn and autistic, and he tends to take rules or guidelines very literally, searching for loopholes to get what he wants. For example, while you said I couldn't do XYZ, you never mentioned this other thing. I have pointed out his manipulative behavior when he does this. Frustrated, I told him that under no circumstances would I allow him in my car with open food, and no attempt to twist my words would change my mind. As he became increasingly upset, I made a sarcastic comment along the lines of, "Well, I'm sorry you're finding out the hard way that some people will say no even though your parents always say yes." His parents are wealthy, and he's accustomed to getting his way, so he's not used to others setting boundaries. I also told him that he was acting like an 8-year-old child. When we arrived home, he aggressively slammed the car door and stormed inside. He hasn't spoken to me since. You set a clear boundary for your car and communicated it multiple times to your boyfriend. Considering your past experiences with not taking care of your car and your desire to keep it clean and organized, it is completely reasonable for you to have this rule in place. Your boyfriend's reaction calling you boring and irrational was disrespectful and uncalled for. It seems like he may be used to always getting his way and is struggling with the concept of someone setting boundaries for him. Additionally, his manipulative behavior of finding loopholes in rules is not acceptable. It's important for both partners in a relationship to respect each other's boundaries and communicate effectively. Your boyfriend's reaction and subsequent silent treatment are not healthy ways to handle conflict. You are not being unreasonable or irrational, and your boyfriend should apologize for his behavior. Am I the antagonist for kicking out my daughter for what she said about my brother? For context, my brother L, who is 31 years old, is disabled. He was born with a condition that left him without a chin jaw. We have a very close relationship, and he is genuinely my best friend. Unfortunately, our mother passed away last month. Her death hit L the hardest because she was his primary caregiver. Thankfully, we had time to discuss our mother's wishes before she passed. One of her wishes was for me to let Elle live with me after she was gone, and I agreed to fulfill that wish. I had an extension added to our house so that Elle could have his own space, and I could always be there to support him. Our family has always been close-knit, and Elle would often stay with us when our mother was away. My 11-year-old son absolutely adores him, and they enjoy doing activities together like sports and gaming. I also believe that my 20-year-old daughter B got along well with Elle. They frequently have Mario Kart tournaments, and Elle has even convinced my husband and me to give B more independence. However, 2 nights ago, B came home late from a party with her friend. I always stay awake until she returns to ensure her safety. As they entered the house, I overheard B say, "We need to be quiet so we don't wake my mentally disabled uncle up." I couldn't believe what I heard. My husband and I have never taught our children to use such derogatory language. This comment brought back memories of when Elle and I were younger, and I would defend him against the cruel people who stared or made fun of him. I immediately got out of bed and confronted my daughter. I asked her to repeat what she said, and her expression showed that she didn't expect me to have heard it. I questioned her about how she could say something so cruel about her own uncle. I reminded her that she was raised better than that, and, at 20 years old, she should know how hurtful those words can be. I also told her that if she thought saying those things to her friend made her look cool, she was mistaken, as it only made her appear like an insecure bully. Instead of apologizing, B simply said that no one was supposed to hear her comment and that it wasn't a big deal. I then asked B's friend if her parents were aware of her staying over, to which she answered yes. I instructed B to leave and stay at her friend's house. B argued that I should take her side because I'm her mother. I reminded her that I have been Elle's sister longer than I've been a mother. B didn't take me seriously initially, as I've always been a calm parent, and had never told her to leave the house before. Although I fully intended to welcome her back home, I wanted her to understand that such behavior would not be tolerated. I apologized to B's friend for the situation and gave her money to cover the cab fare to her house. I contacted B yesterday hoping she had understood the severity of her actions, but she did not. She was upset that I took Elle's side over hers. I asked her to come home so we could have a proper discussion, but she refused. Thankfully, I have been in touch with her friend, and B is still staying there, so I know she is safe. My husband believes I was too harsh, but I can't help the protective nature that comes from being a big sister. Am I the asshole? It is clear that you have a strong bond with your disabled brother who is also your best friend. Your mother's dying wish was for you to take care of him, and you have gone above and beyond to provide for him by extending your house. It is understandable that you would feel hurt and protective when your daughter made derogatory comments about her own uncle. You have every right to be upset and to enforce consequences for her behavior. It is important for her to learn that such language is unacceptable and hurtful. Your priority should be to support and protect your brother, especially during this difficult time. Am I the antagonist for not wanting mother-in-law to call my son by a different name? I, 26-year-old female, and my dear husband, 36-year-old male, had a son 2 months ago. Towards the end of my pregnancy, my husband informed me that his mother had chosen a second name for our son. However, I expressed my preference for him to have just one name, the one we had agreed upon. Despite conveying this to her, she insisted on calling him by the new name, referring to it as a nickname. This bothered me a lot, but I initially tried not to make a big deal out of it. However, now I find myself feeling triggered every time she, and now my husband's aunts, use that name. Yesterday, when she called him X, I corrected her and stated that his name is actually Y. I explained how he may become confused if we use different names for him. She responded by saying, "I told you long ago that I would call him that, as it holds special meaning for me." I countered by saying, "Yes, but it's not his given name, and it will only confuse him." She then said, "I respect what you guys do, so you have to respect what I want to do too." I didn't say anything further. To provide some context, my husband is South Asian and I'm South American. We conceived our child while still dating, and I met his mother when I was approximately 5 months pregnant. She is deeply religious Muslim and insisted that I convert to Islam and that we get married. Seeing how important this was to her, I agreed, despite it not aligning with my personal desires. We ended up eloping on the date she chose, and she went to great lengths to dress me up and hide my belly so the imam wouldn't notice. As a result, my wedding was far from what I had envisioned, but I accepted it to demonstrate respect for her wishes. Months in advance, I informed my husband that anyone who wished to meet our little one before he turned 2 months old needed to have the TDAP vaccine. He relayed this information to his mother, but as you may have guessed, not only did she fail to get vaccinated, but she also showed up at the hospital with her sister, nephew, other son, and his wife, all of whom were unvaccinated. Upon walking in, she immediately grabbed my son and began passing him around as if he were a toy, without bothering to ask if I was comfortable with it. I mention all of this because it strikes me as ironic that she told me, "I respect what you guys do, so you have to respect what I want to do," when in reality, everything has been her way or nothing. Yesterday, I asked my husband to talk to her about the naming situation. However, he once again dismissed my concerns, explaining how everyone in his family has nicknames. He claimed that he tried to empathize with me, but still couldn't understand why it bothered me so much. Moreover, he accused me of simply causing problems. Now, I would like to know if I am the one at fault here. Am I the asshole? It is completely reasonable for you to be upset and assertive about your son's name. As the parents, you have the right to decide what your child is called. Your mother-in-law disregarded your wishes and continued to call your son by a different name, which can be confusing for the child and disrespectful towards you. Additionally, your mother-in-law's behavior regarding vaccinations and disregarding your rules shows a lack of respect for your boundaries as a parent. It is important to prioritize your child's health and safety, and your mother-in-law's actions put that at risk. Your DH should be supporting you and addressing the issue with his mother. It is not fair for him to dismiss your concerns and claim that you will only cause problems. Communication and compromise are key in a healthy relationship, and it is important for your DH to understand and respect your feelings. In conclusion, you are not the AH for wanting your son to be called by his agreed-upon name and for expressing your concerns about your mother-in-law's behavior. Am I the antagonist for working out in my backyard? My wife and I, mid-30s female and male, recently purchased a house in a busier part of the city where we were already living. The noise level has become a relevant factor for us. Prior to moving in, we took the time to introduce ourselves to our sweet older neighbor to inform her that we would be tenting our house for fumigation. It was a pleasant conversation where she complimented my wife's cute pregnant belly and shared some information about her own daughter with whom she lives. She informed us that only she and her daughter live there. Mornings are my dedicated self-care time. I wake up at 5 a.m. and typically start my workout in the backyard at 5:30 a.m. These workouts usually involve activities like jumping rope, plyometrics, and using a rope ladder for footwork and agility exercises. Since moving into our new house, I have conducted these outdoor workouts twice, yesterday morning and this morning. At around 6:15 a.m. today, while winding down my workout with some slam ball tosses in the dirt of my yard, I heard shouting behind me, audible even over the music playing in my headphones. I turned around to see a man in his 50s leaning over my fence, shouting, "It's too early for this nonsense, bro." I asked him if it was the thudding sound or the activities I was doing in my garage that bothered him. He replied, "Everything. It's too early. Do this at 8 o'clock. I asked him again what specifically I could do to reduce the noise, but he only repeated, "Everything. It's too early for this nonsense." So I moved to another part of my yard to finish up. Later, I discovered that this man is a tenant who shares the property with the sweet old lady. I don't have another point of contact to discuss the noise issue with him, apart from approaching the woman or waiting for him to yell over my fence again. My scheduled routine is intentional, and my initial thought was that it is his responsibility to cope with it. Living in a city means accepting the ambient sounds of people going about their lives. Additionally, the unnecessarily aggressive way in which this man chose to introduce himself to his new neighbors doesn't inspire me to be accommodating. Hence, I'm contemplating whether I am in the wrong if I continue working out in my backyard. Your roommates have consistently damaged and misused your belongings, showing a lack of respect for your property. Despite your initial agreement to share appliances and materials, it is clear that they have taken advantage of your generosity. It is completely reasonable for you to want to protect your belongings from further misuse. Additionally, it is their responsibility to replace any items that they have damaged or used without permission. Would I be the antagonist for telling on my neighbor for locking me out of a group meeting by refusing to engage the automatic door? I'm in a wheelchair. I live in a cooperative housing community that includes residents with and without disabilities. I had the idea to create a peer support and help exchange roster, where residents could assist each other if interested. Another resident and I decided to discuss this idea during a meeting, gathering feedback, and potentially securing funding from our communal social fund, which everyone contributes to at the beginning of the year for group activities. Unfortunately, on the day of the meeting, my wheelchair battery was almost completely drained. Despite agreeing to arrive 15 minutes early, we ended up arriving just as the meeting was about to start because my wheelchair was moving very slowly. I was right behind my co-presenter, attempting to enter the room, when she let the door close in my face. I gestured for her to use the automatic door opener, as there was only one on her side of the door. However, she neither let me in nor informed anyone that I was outside waiting for the door to be opened. Instead, she told them I couldn't make it due to wheelchair issues. People were quite surprised when I finally found someone to open the door for me. Later, my co-presenter admitted that she did this intentionally. She claimed that I had already made us late and she didn't want me to disrupt the meeting further. She also admitted that my wheelchair problem had frustrated and annoyed her, and she even considered replacing me with someone else. I asked her not to use the language and materials I had produced for the project, but her response was dismissive and disrespectful. She said I'll use whatever language I please and referred to me as deluded for thinking people wouldn't understand why she couldn't let me attend the meeting. It's important to note that any non-wheelchair users could have easily entered the room, as I was the only one who could have been kept out like that. I feel that her actions were unfair and deceitful, and I am inclined to inform the other neighbors who attended the meeting about what happened. However, part of me wonders if that would be petty, considering that this incident occurred months ago, and I did manage to attend the majority of the meeting. Am I wrong for wanting to expose her bad behavior, even if it potentially harms a project that could assist other individuals with disabilities? Should I put aside my pride and try to resolve the issue with her in order to salvage any hope of progressing a cause that I strongly believe in? Wanting to expose her behavior is reasonable, as it can help shed light on the mistreatment you faced and prevent similar incidents in the future. It is important for others to know the truth about what happened. However, it is also worth considering the potential impact this could have on the project and the overall goal of helping people with disabilities. Before making a decision, it might be worth attempting to have a conversation with your co-presenter to express your feelings and discuss the situation. If she shows genuine remorse and a willingness to rectify her behavior, it might be possible to salvage the project and continue working together. However, if she remains unapologetic or unwilling to change, then exposing her actions might be necessary to ensure the well-being and inclusivity of the project. Ultimately, the decision is yours, but it is important to prioritize your own well-being and the principles behind the project in making your choice. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.